All right, on Saturday, 24th of June 2023, the people of Sierra Leone headed to the polls to elect new president and, of course, members of parliament. In that election on Saturday, over 3 million voters exercised their franchise to elect a new president. This, of course, is coming after over a decade of turmoil in that country. We'll be joining an international election observer who is in Freetown at the moment. Will be keeping us abreast of development with the elections, and as we hear, the voting, the counting of ballots is ongoing. We have Austin Aigbe joining us virtually from Freetown. It's so good to see you, Austin, and good morning.
Good morning. So happy to see you on the other side.
Okay, so what's the political weather is like in Sierra Leone where you are?
So it's supposed to be a very, permit me to use the word, not too big country compared to us, but the tension is just beyond what you could even talk about in Nigeria. So as we speak, today is Monday, because of the fear that since counting is ongoing at the regional level, there is a possibility that once the results are declared at the regional level, there may be an eruption of violence. So because of that, there's a lot of conversation going on that people stay at home. As I speak to you now, the roads are literally dead. The usual vehicular movement is down, like completely. Maybe measuring like 1%, so that I don't say it's completely, but you see one car move on, the next time you see another one is like 3 or 4 minutes after, whereas in the particular road is supposed to be a very major road compared to the normal usual days. Yes, and it's also because of political parties and candidates who are already declaring themselves as winners in the election. I'm sure you would have heard there are 2 major contenders in this election. It is the APC, that's the All Progressive Congress Party, the All People's Congress Party.
Yeah.
All People Congress Party. Congress Party. Yeah. So and the SLPP, the Sierra Leone People's Party. So these 2 parties are the major contenders, whereas there are 12 others. But just like we have in our contest too, there is these 2 major parties. But the SLPP is the government in power, but the APC would like to take over. So there be pre-election issues erupted, counter accusations, and all of that mounting on the political pressure and political environment. For instance, the target was the Electoral Commission. The chair of the Electoral Commission was asked to resign, that the APC was pushing the agenda for him to resign, claiming a number of issues, and of course they were responsive. The chair also responded, but if you look at the political undertone, you probably want to go on one or 2 sides. And the way the structure of the Sierra Leone politics is, it's sharply divided along the north and the south. So if you're from the north, you are affiliated to one political party. And if you are from the south, you're also affiliated to one political party. So if you talk to someone from the north, you are literally going to have a political perception which is literally from a part out, you're going to get that strong perception. So that's what is happening right here in Sierra Leone. I mean, particularly in Freetown.
All right. So can we look at some of the issues that will shape really the results of this election at the end of the day? You've talked about sharply divided from between the north and the southern candidates. But we also have issues like ethnicity, issues like the economic situation in the country, which is said to be biting hard. So vis-a-vis what has been happening in this election, what do you think some of the issues that will shape the outcome will be?
So like you said, the main issue is the ethnicity, so to say, because that's why I use the word north and south. People don't care whether the economy is bad. Once they are from the north, they are going to vote a certain candidate. And when from the south, they're going to vote a certain candidate. That's the division. So you talk to somebody and say, but the economy doesn't matter. He's not the one who started it, especially when he has even improved on it. And they will show you examples of the educational improvement with free education right now, which is in Sierra Leone, even leading up to even the tertiary institution level. And most girls, most young girls, teenage girls who are hitherto put out of school due to teenage pregnancy have gradually returned back to school. They are going to show you all of those. But when you ask of economy, of course, like everyone knows, it's biting hard. A bottle of Coke is literally almost 20 leons, between 15 and 20 leons, depending on where you are buying it. And 10 leon is about 400 naira. You then imagine that if 10 leon is 400 naira, which can buy you 2 bottles of Coke at home, you then imagine what that means for Sierra Leone people. And for all honesty, they are super happy people. They've got what we don't have. Security in this country is very strong. Yeah, I see people walking on the street because where I live, I could easily see the road. And you see 2 a.m., 3 a.m., people are still walking home. You see girls, I mean, a single woman or a single lady, a single man, young, that's walking on the street without any form of support. And I asked, are you guys not afraid of the night? They said, no, the country is safe. And with that, I collaborated that it's safe. I mean, not even Abuja, you people want to walk 2 a.m. or even in the streets of Wuse or somewhere. That's very remarkable. Maybe you can say that economy because of the PPP, the purchasing power parity, may be higher, but that may not be the same here. But that's not exactly the calculation, because if you also check in Ghana purchasing power, it's a bit also higher compared to Nigeria. But I just think that it's maybe what they have or what they don't have. But in all honesty, my thought about this election is going to be the ethnic division. That's the North and the South. But that ethnicity doesn't really show after the election. That's the problem. And just also put on record that there's the North, there's also the Islam and Christianity here. But they beat me to it. Religion does not have a place in their politics. And that's what is missing in our home. They don't care whether you're Christian, Muslim, they don't. They just, but what they care about is that they want you to be from the North, so all the Northerners vote for you, or they want you to be from the South, or the Southerners vote for you. So the thing is, with the way the structure is, for you to become president, to secure the 55% threshold, you must be able to get an inroad to your opponent area and win votes. For example, the candidate of APC, who is from the North, has to get an inroad to the South, particularly in Freetown, which of course is somehow the party's stronghold, too, in the South. They have to make good inroad to the South. The same way the candidate of the SLPP needs to make inroad to the North. And that's exactly what happened in 2018 elections, and it has to happen again. Otherwise, any of them, whoever is going to be declared in the election, will have to make those inroads. And just also say that whether parties are stopped from observing the regional coalition, and that is hitting up the polity again, just to respond to the first question, and to also add that yesterday there were tear gas canisters that were released in the opposition party because apparently there was some kind of press statement that was alleged to have been made, and where the candidate was allegedly seen to be declaring himself as president of Sierra Leone.
All right, so let's look at some indicators and what happened on voting day on Saturday. So we hear that in Sierra Leone, for example, there is a gender act that says that at least in public and private institutions, for example, 30% has to be women. On the ballot also, amongst the 13 presidential candidates, we have one woman also contesting for the elections. Let's also juxtapose that with a lot of youth participation, particularly with research conducted by the Institute for Governance and Reforms, that say young people also have a lot of stake in the elections, with about 50% of them also registered for the elections. On election day, for example, did all this come to play with a lot of female enthusiasts and voters, heading to the polls? Did you see a lot of young people also, getting excited to vote? Particularly also with what we hear that in Sierra Leone, for example, you can actually vote without a voter's card.
In fact, this is something that we need to learn. Nigeria has to learn from. Sierra Leone has a GWE Act 2022. That's the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Act 2022. That act made it almost, in fact, mandatory for political parties nominating women, nominating candidates to fit at least 30%. But the GWE Act does not give effect to itself. So there was the enactment of the Public Election Act, which is called our own Electoral Act, the Public Election Act, that gave effect to the GWE Act. So the commission, that's the Electoral Commission, then released its own regulation, and part of the regulation is that for every 3 nominations by political parties, 1 has to be a woman. So for every 3, 1 is a woman. So, but there's a some form of analysis there too. This does not impact on the executive position. So in Sierra Leone has what they call the block PRO system, proportional representational system. This is the first time they are introducing what they call the block. The block means that political parties are now the one you vote for. Political parties, we have to do the nomination. Then once they win the election, the Electoral Commission allocate seats to them. For you to secure a seat in the National Assembly, in the Parliament, you have to have 11.9% of the total vote cast in that particular district. So what that means is that for a woman to then emerge, eventually, that political party that nominated a woman and that has the woman as number 3, don't forget number 3. So if the party secure, let's say 11.9%, they are going to give them maybe 1 seat, and they are likely not going to send a woman because the woman is number 3. They will send a man. So for the woman to then emerge in Parliament, the party must secure at least absolute majority in that area. But this is the advantage. Like I told you, in the North and the South are dominated by whichever party. So if the APC has a woman as number 3 and wins all the seats, or absolute majority in the North, you're going to have more women coming from the North. The same way in the South, if the SLPP has women as number 3 and they get absolute majority, you're going to also have more women showing up in Parliament. That is unique. Maybe it has another challenge, which is not the focus of this conversation. We can discuss that at another time, or maybe in the course of this conversation. Then to come to the regulation of voting, the system just worked well. I mean, it's even worked beyond what the beavers can do. So this is what has happened here. If you misplace your ID, just make sure you have been registered. First of all, you show up at the polling unit with another identity card. Once you get there, you just show the identity card and tell them you are registered. They will locate your name and ask you relevant questions. Like I told you, at pre-election, the APC had accused the Electoral Commission that it withdrew from them the register, the voters register. And then when the voter register was eventually given, there were certain details that were removed from it. You only gave them the name, I think where they are voting or something like that. But they did not include other details. The commission responded that we cannot give you these details. These details code that's the code on election day. So there are certain details in the register. For example, your house address, your mother's name, your age. Those details become the code on election day. So when you come to vote without an ID, the voter is asked, what's your address? The voter has to know it because is the one who registered. What's your age? Which month were you born? What's your mother's name? So once the voter is able to reply those details correctly, because the answer is in the register. Once that answer is correct, that voter will vote. If you flip that with beavers, beaver doesn't even need you to go through that process because it's biometrics. You just go there, it's supposed to pop it up, or if you have a photocopy of your voter's card, because all they need is to enter your name on the phone, on the bivas, and they pop your registration up, and your face is verified. That's even easier back at home. So that should be something that we need to begin to process in our electoral act to amend those rules. People need to vote without voters card in future elections in Nigeria. Whether the GWE Act will increase the number of women in parliament is a different ball game. But we are already seeing that based on my analysis just now, the North and South divide, we are going to have more than the 12% women representation which the country currently has. 12% already is higher than what we have in parliament in Nigeria. So for them, if they move up to 20, 25, that will be huge. But they may not be at 30% yet. It's important to truly praise their GWE Act, because for many years, since 2006, the Gender and Equal Opportunity Act bill has been National Assembly consistently. All the other National Assembly, 6, 7, 8, 9, now we have the 10th National Assembly. We hope that this 10th National Assembly will learn from Sierra Leone to pass some form of equality or quota system bill into law that will enhance inclusive representation and inclusive governance in our own landscape.
Well, all eyes are on Sierra Leone now after Nigeria's election. Of course, we do know that the West African region has been, battled with several coups in recent past, and everyone expects that the election will go seamless. But then, from the feelers you're getting, when is the result likely to be announced?
Usually, in fact, that got me angry when I heard. Usually in this country, it takes 2 weeks to announce results, and I was like, "What? What do you mean? What? And you have just about 3 million registered voters, 11,000 plus polling units, and you're waiting for 2 weeks?" But this commission has changed it. This commission said within 48 hours. We are expecting that by today, regional results, collated results at the region will start polling to the National Collation Center, and hopefully by maybe before the end of the day or by tomorrow, the Electoral Commission would have announced the winner.
We're hearing about only Bayo, the incumbent president, and of course Kamara, the strong contender there. But we do know there are other 11 candidates contesting for this election. What's happening to them? Or is it the same thing with Nigeria? At least this time around in Nigeria, we had 4 contenders, so to speak.
You're right. But here they will tell you they tried in 2018. The third force tried, but it only secured a few seats. That it's difficult to have a third force in this country. And I asked why. They told me because no person in the North would like to waste, in quotes, waste their vote for a third force that may not win nationally. So it will be a risk. So they protect their party jealously. In this case, people protect their parties. Unlike in Nigeria, where we really don't belong to parties. We don't. We just argue on the streets, argue everywhere. We say PDP is not good, APC is not good, Labour is not good. Meanwhile, you don't have a party. But here, even those who work in international firms, who are local, resident staff, they will still tell you they have affiliation with their own party, because it's more like a family party. It's passed from, it's like a hereditary party, so to use the right word. It's hereditary. That's the party their father belonged to. That's the party their mothers belong to. That's the party their great-grandfather belonged to. So they stay with the party. Even when you move from the party, you will see family members trying to get you back, because you are seen to be someone that is losing your mind. And when they're able to get you back, there's some form of celebration. And it's very interesting. But of course, it may have its own flip side if we have to do further analysis. But it makes sense that citizens go for party, not necessarily the individuals. Unlike in Nigeria, we tend to usually go for the individuals. And for the third or fourth party we had in Nigeria, we knew that it would be a challenge for the third force, because it wasn't even a third force. I've argued that Nigeria didn't have a third force. It was just 4 parties that end up the ladder. Yes, in Nigeria, just to also bring the comedy. In this country, there's APC, there's PDP. But in this place, the PDP did not show up at all because it's not a party that is really having the coverage. And they also have the independent candidate. And I wonder how anyone would want to feed himself as an independent when it's extremely difficult based on the divide to secure an election, to secure even a number of votes. It may work for the parliament, but the way it is in this country, because of the block proportional representation system, independent candidate may also not feed in because you are voting for parties who then allocate, the Electoral Commission then allocate number of seats to in the parliament. So maybe they have to look at it. People argue that independent candidate is a right. Yes, it is a right. But we're engaged in a system that is extremely difficult to win an election. So those are some lessons, and they are very good lessons. I've learned a lot of things here, even though it's not a big country, about 8 million total number of people, citizens, which is literally, you have to then look at some, not even Lagos or Kano, with comparison to the country, but they've shown a lot of, I've learned a lot of lessons here, which I think for our jurisprudence, we must find a way to incorporate some of those in our electoral system.
Okay. Thank you so much. Two quick questions. The first one is, what's the general assessment of Saturday's poll by the observer missions in Sierra Leone? We hear that the former president, President Jonathan, is also listening, is also leading an observer mission in that country. The former vice president is also leading the Commonwealth mission in the country. And the second one, you just spoke about it, but we'd just like you to enumerate, let's say, 2 points. What are the key lessons that we can take away from the elections and replicate in our system to strengthen our electoral process?
Yes, the Saturday election was extremely, compared to 2018, because you cannot say an election, it's difficult to say election is peaceful, right? Because there will be pockets of violence that may not really matter, but there were pockets of violence. Yes, but the election went on so peacefully, much more than the 2018 election. They tell it's because of the 2018 election and previous election, that's why people are just enthusiastic about what's happening. So, for example, lessons from here, we don't have to shut down our country because of election. After the 2018 election in this country, a lawyer went to court and sued the government, that, particularly the police, that you cannot shut down a country because of an election. And the Supreme Court ruled that elections should be conducted as a civic responsibility, that every other person have a right to move about on election day. So on Saturday, vehicular movement were not stopped. People moved. Public transport moved. But people will generally not move because of the fear of election. That what if it happened midway and you are in that circle? So right now, that's something we need to learn in Nigeria. We are wasting too much money. Economy will shut down for a day. For a country like Nigeria, it's a colossal damage. Especially if you realize in 2019 and 2011, even 2015, that elections were postponed. So it means that 2 days of economic sabotage. That's too wasteful for Nigeria. We have to think about that. In our electoral system, we need to do that. Secondly, is the one I talked about, the voters. You let people vote even if they misplace their ID card, particularly the presidential election. Anywhere you are in the country, you should be able to vote for the president. Anywhere you are. You may not be able to vote for your governor because you may not have the list of the gubernatorial list there, but you have to vote for because of displacement that is becoming a recurring decimal in our country. People move from north, south, southwest at any time, but let the people appear in the polling and vote for the president. Let them be able to vote even though they don't have the ID card. It may have been misplaced at any point of movement. That's second. A third one is inclusivity in our governance architecture. It's either Nigeria passes the Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill, or in our Electoral Act, there must be that inclusion of a quota system. INEC must be empowered as an independent entity to check the list of political party submitted list of political party and do the measurement.
Yes,
Where
indeed.
where women's lists are limited, they should reject that list. For young people, I think I missed that question earlier. For young people had this election, and women had this election too.
Yes.
Women had the highest number of women were the highest number of voters in this election, 1.7, men 1.6. So that's why in this election you saw in every polling unit literally I went to, there was huge voters turnout and huge population of women who showed up. Young people is the future of this country.
All right, Austin, quite a key point you have made there. Lessons to be drawn from the Sierra Leone election, even though when you compare, the population is nothing to compare with Nigeria. But we do hope the authorities are listening and will do the needful. We must thank you very much for being a part of this show to give us update on the elections in Sierra Leone. Austin Aigbe has been our guest. He's an international election observer observing the election in Sierra Leone. Do have a great day and stay safe out there.
Thank you.